Hey, and welcome back to the Work Culture Podcast. Today we've got John Karsant. He's the founder and CEO of Level Up Leads, basically a fractional sales, marketing, email, really cool stuff you're doing, John. Hey, thanks for being on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jason. Appreciate it.
Yeah, why don't you give us just a high-level intro of who you are and kind of how you've gotten to, Level Up Leads in your journey.
Yeah, sure. I actually was a tennis coach. I played tennis in college, was a tennis coach
Oh,
for a
nice.
while, and after a while, I was thinking, I just don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So I broke off and pulled the plug there and started actually working remotely. So I found a job. I was traveling and I was living in another country in Argentina, and I found a remote job doing lead gen for solar. And so started doing that. It was a scrappy startup, but while it didn't pay very well, I learned a lot. I learned a
Mm,
lot about how to run a business. They really gave me a lot of the ability to do lots of things from invoicing, full sales cycle, really understand the back end of things. And so even though that was roughly 10 years ago, that was my best experience, which helped me get to where I am today. Along the way, I had other roles, did full sales cycle for various different companies, cold calling, emailing. I was working for a lead gen agency before I started this one. And so that's kind of how I got here. I spun off and started Level Up Leads a little over 3 years ago. And
yeah.
so what we do is we're a sales development agency. So we work with companies anywhere from small startups up to big enterprise companies. They're on the New York Stock Exchange. They're over
Yeah.
10K employees, but most of the
Wow.
clients that we work with, they're in that 50 to 500 in terms of employee count, and we basically do sales development for them, cold calling, cold emailing. We have a few other services, SEO, LinkedIn ads, Google ads, and we also do LinkedIn outreach as well. But the whole idea is we're doing that prospecting for companies to provide their sales team with more selling opportunities.
Yeah.
So that's why they
That's
hire us.
absolutely, that's really needed. I mean, the lead gen is a nightmare to try to spin up on your own. Just headache after headache, and you don't know what you're doing. You get your domain blacklisted, or you get kicked off LinkedIn, or, and it's just highly ineffective unless you really have systems down. So yeah, that's really good that you guys are doing that.
Yeah,
Um,
and there's lots of headaches involved in hiring, softwares, all sorts of things. So we can
yep.
dive into that later.
Yeah, I mean, that's we're here. We talk about people and culture, so I'm sure we'll talk about that. But here's the curveball. I like to ask every guest the same first question, and it's kind of a vulnerability primer. What's a mistake that you've made in leadership that you'll never forget?
That is a good question. I think sometimes trying to do it all is
Mm,
is a mistake and not delegating enough. And I think sometimes as a founder, you feel like a lot of the responsibility falls on your shoulders, which it does. But I think it's also my job and the job of the founder to set up processes and systems and get the people in place and get them well trained so you can have them when things arise and things need to be done, that they're trained and they realize that falls into their responsibilities rather than me having to try to do everything. And
yeah.
there's a saying out there that says instead of a CEO, it's the chief everything officer. And
Yeah.
so they're just doing everything. And so yeah, I've fallen, I'm guilty of that. Let's say that. And but I'm getting better. And so we are actually allowing, once you get out of that, it allows your company to grow. And
Yeah.
so I think that's something I would acknowledge is something I could improve upon.
Yeah, I mean, you're in good company. We hear that a lot, and I've been there as well for sure. What would you say is the biggest drawback from that unintentional mindset, right? Of I have to do everything, I have to do everything, and you're not delegating yet. What's negative that's happening there in the company and the culture?
Well, as a lot of people say, you're working in the business, not on the business. And so that's what happens. And there's still times I get pulled into things, that's for sure. And um, but it's less and less. And I think if you're just in the weeds, there's only so much of yourself. So, like for example, I might be able to work with 15 to 20 clients. But if I'm pulled in and involved in those 15 to 20 clients, then how do you get to 50? You don't.
Hmm.
So you have to be able to figure out a way to scale yourself. And a lot of that's done through is done through training, getting the right processes set up,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. And then, so obviously the flip side of the benefits would be the opposite of that. But what are some other benefits that come to mind for, particularly for the culture and the people on your team as you begin to delegate and give them more responsibility and take more risks on them?
I think they start to feel like they're owning certain sections, and as a company grows, they can start to work their way into a more senior position. And so you might have, let's just say, a customer success manager. You might
Hmm.
have a few of them, but who eventually becomes the lead? Who eventually ends up managing them? And so who I think by giving them that responsibility and then them taking ownership of that, it allows them to step into new roles as they're created as the company grows.
Yeah. How many employees are you guys at right now?
We're at 50.
50 employees. People, and are most of them doing the service of the outreach and all that and customer success?
Yeah, most are on fulfillment. So we
Yeah.
have roughly, I think it's 27 SDRs. And so
Wow.
they're actually on the phones, making calls, doing some follow-ups via email. And we have other people taking care of the other channels, but that's a big chunk of our team right there.
Yeah. Over half. Wow. Is it fully remote or do you guys have offices?
Fully remote.
Yeah.
Yep, that's how
Uh,
I started.
yeah. I figured as much since before we hit the start button, you told me that you are traveling the world and also CEOing at the same time. What country are you in right now?
Yeah, it's so this is the I've been working in South America for a while, and it's great because it aligns with the United States, and of course I go back to the States all the time. But for work purposes, it's great. But this is the first time I went to Europe, and I was like, I'm going to try to see what this is like to work the USA
Yeah.
hours, but in Europe. So essentially, it gives you the first
Oof.
half of the day to do what you want to do, but I'm oftentimes up till 2 a.m. working.
Right.
And to be honest, it hasn't been as bad as I thought. I got pretty used to it. The culture in a lot of the European countries, there it's a little bit later compared to the United States, so you have that benefit going for you. And yeah, it's been great. I've been to roughly eight to 10 countries on this trip. It's over the course of 6 months, and right now I'm in
Wow.
Cyprus, and I have about 3 days left in my trip, so and I'm heading back.
Like total. So this stint of travel, see the world and work is wrapping up.
Yep, that's
Wow.
true.
Was there a personal like vision or mission that kind of made you go on this excursion?
Um, just hey, we're working remotely. Why not? Like, I'm
Yeah,
36. Why not take advantage of it? You just never know what the next day will bring health wise, and why not take advantage of
sure.
the ability to make money while visiting other countries.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. So obviously you're practicing what you preach, which is, this probably work-life balance and letting people work remotely. What would you say is one of your biggest successes or secrets or contributors to building a healthy culture fully remote?
That's a tough question. I think building a positive culture remote has been a challenge, but
Hmm.
I would say remaining flexible. There's certainly been times where well, we always give trust into our team, and we don't put a timer on them. We just
Right.
say we don't care if they're like, look, if you got to go to the doctor or dentist, or you want to take the day off, that's fine. But communication is everything. That's just what we
Yeah.
preach. If you don't work and you don't say anything, then there's an issue. If you say, hey, I'm going to be out here for this reason, then that's fine as long as you're communicating with us. We're in different parts of the world. Everybody on the team or a remote team, and so there's no one. We're not in office. We don't know what you're doing. And um, anyways, but by providing that flexibility, if you need to take your kids to school at 8 or 9 a.m. or whatever time it is, that you can do that. And I think that's allowed us to retain a lot of our talent and our people.
Yeah.
Um, so that's been huge. Now, you also can get burned on that. So
Sure.
goes two ways, and you try to understand why is this person's not, why are they making fewer calls, and why is it consistently, why are they making fewer calls? And so it can burn you a little bit, but also there's benefits to that.
Yeah, the hope in humanity would be that most people aren't taking advantage, that they are enjoying that flexibility and therefore, putting their best foot forward. You know, I'd rather trust and verify than be distrustful and paranoid. Like a lot of you see a lot of these leaders that are like gaslighting the whole culture, like, remote work doesn't work at all, and you're like, okay, so you're just ignoring all of what happened during COVID and all of the stats that came out about how successful it was. It's been fascinating to see that.
Yeah, and I think over time you can tell what's going on. Uh, only in a short time, I should say. Like you can tell if someone's working or not. I don't need to have a
Yeah.
timer on them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, gone are the days of the boiler room. My first out of college job was that, like, this hour to this hour, 30 minutes for a lunch break. Here's your check box. And if you're not 120 dials a day, you're fired. I mean, it was just wild. And it was such fast burnout. But, it was a high risk, high reward situation. But it reminds me, though, like the sales of especially the SDR role in most companies have a really fast turnover. Like just the shelf life is really short. Do you see that with what you guys are doing as well? Is it as much of a challenge?
yeah, in general, that like sales is tough. You have a lot of turnover. Luckily, we haven't had people leave. Not too often. Now, we do hire people who think are going to be a good fit, and a week or two in, for whatever reason, there's all sorts of issues. It doesn't work out. And so you always
Yeah.
want to give that barrier. You never want to hire someone and put them on a client right away. So we always have them work internally and go through training first and make sure it's a good fit. But um, yeah, that is a challenge, right? You think someone's good, they interview really well, but then I could name a few different reasons why they won't work out.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like, though, you try to remedy that fast. You don't let it linger and cost you money and headache.
100%. Yeah, because you're essentially bleeding money if it's not going to work out. So
Yeah.
you got to figure out if it's going to work out quick. Sometimes you have to have some one-on-ones with that person. Um, but yeah, for the most part, we have a solid team. I'm really happy with them, and uh, we have some really solid people working for us, and a lot of people want to work remotely and have that flexibility of not having
Yeah.
to go into an office. So you're able to get people at a lower price point than
Hmm.
say have someone in the United States. Um, so that's the type of culture we're trying to build.
Yeah. That's really cool. What are, so obviously you've seen success with the fully remote, the flexibility, the not keeping a timer on folks, like just that trust that you're giving to people and then delegating. On the flip side, what are some of the challenges that you feel like you're facing and you just still face? Like, what are there things keeping you up at night other than, working US hours in Europe?
um, I think as a business owner, you're all the problems end up filtering up to you for the most part, or at least the
Hmm.
bigger ones. So you're always dealing with challenges, and I don't think if if you're growing, I just think that's the case. Anyone I've talked to, there's always stuff going, challenges along the way. Um, Not really like stuff that keeps me up at night. It's more so like, hey, look, I have a never-ending to-do list, and that's like, oh yeah, I remember I got to do that. Oh yeah, okay, I have to do this. Um, for the most part, yeah, we have a solid team. Clients, for the most part, are great and reasonable. Um, so yeah, those are the things that keep me up. Is my never-ending to-do list.
Yeah, yeah, it does seem to just keep growing as you're knocking things off. The journey to roughly 50 employees, did that ramp up real fast? Has it been steady? Has it just been ramping up recently? How's that looked and felt for you?
So one suggestion and something we've had to do over time is just be open to change.
Mm.
If I had stuck with the way I started the company, we would have failed by now.
Mm.
So
Say more about that.
so we started the company as strictly list building. So basically, clients have these
Mm.
unique ICPs, ideal customer profiles, and sometimes they need help in going out and sourcing those contacts and the information and making sure it's valid. So we started out like that, and I realized, okay, so clients are signing up for 1,000, 2,000 contacts here or there, but it's a one-time sale. They need some time to go work those. And people come back, but over time. And so it was a lot of work for not a lot of returns. So while we still offer that, I don't even talk about it on sales calls. I mean, if you heard my intro, it's completely different. So it's included, but now we started introducing other channels, other services, and getting meetings booked in your calendar. And that's just way more valuable. I could provide you a great list, but what about if you just had actually qualified meetings in your calendar and your team's focused on selling, not on prospecting? So we started adding things like cold calling, cold emailing, LinkedIn, to name a few. And so those are the changes we made over time. And also within that, like changing up the packages, that has helped significantly. We started hiring more qualified SDRs. And so through that's allowed us to grow. That's allowed us to retain more clients, increasing our prices, but also increasing the value. That has helped us in going upstream, but also growing as a company.
Yeah. Do you see that growth continuing at a pretty steady pace?
I hope so. We're in a growth spurt right now, and you never really know when those dips are going to be, but we're riding the wave right now, and we'll see how far it goes.
Yeah. So, I mean, 3 years in the world of cold marketing actually feels like a really long time. I've seen so many shifts in just even me getting spammed, LinkedIn messaged, emailed, called. How have you seen that change in terms of what's effective and what is dead now?
So it's a good question, and it's an ever-changing space. You can't just do the same thing over and over again because other people will pick up on it, and just the same thing will not work forever. Unfortunately, that's just the reality. For example, 3-4 years ago, the response rates on email were just way higher than they are now. And I think part of that is just every tool these days has an email function to it. There's just more and more people have access to the data. More and more people have access to these softwares, and they can fire up campaigns much easier. So that's made it more competitive. So you have to kind of always stay ahead of the curve. What hasn't gone away and won't go away is cold calling. People don't like to pick up the phones and make dials all day. It's expensive to do. No one likes to do it. And so that has been around since I've been alive. And I don't think that's going away. People will talk about what works and what doesn't, and there's ups and downs, but that is our number one channel. And that's what we have kind of doubled down on and for our clients.
Wow.
Hence the 27 SDRs.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of calling, and you're right. It's just, are there certain ICPs that works much better with, and certain ones that you're like, forget about it, we're not going to try cold calling?
No, for the most part, calling works best. It's
wow. Huh.
Because there's certain ICPs where emailing might not work as well. For example, you call into, say, a manufacturing plant. Well, a lot of these people, they're on the floor, they're at the manufacturing process. They're not always sitting behind the desk. And so catching them on a cell phone is going to be much better. And plus, once you get them on the phone, you can actually have a decent conversation, understand whether or not they're a good fit, why you're reaching out to the wrong person or right person. And so like the feedback loop is much better and quicker. Whereas I'm not trying to say email doesn't work, but it's much easier to ignore. So you can certainly have good results with email, but when you have a conversation, you can learn a lot more. And that's what our clients are. A lot of them are trying to figure out, okay, who's my ICP? Okay, what's the best vertical for us, or company size, things like that. And so we do help them learn things along the way, and we find that cold calling is the best way.
Yeah, man, I can't imagine how much training and coaching you must have to do with your SDRs, because every client with a different ICP and a different product that they're pitching, different, the audience reception. Having conversations over the phone, you have to think on the fly. You have to know your material, right? And how challenging is that part?
It's a little bit of a challenge, but not as much as you'd think. We have scripts that we write out, ultimately are approved by our clients. We have internal training. We also have training with the SDR and the client. And we'll also get recordings and materials, like marketing materials from the client. So we can, we pick up on things pretty quick with that. And then there's ongoing training too, right? As you need to make adjustments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's fascinating. But before we kind of move to just, the shameless plug section, what are your hopes for the future of the workplace? What do you see as a trend that you hope continues or starts?
I think more human to human interaction, building relationships and trying to not view everything. This is, again, a little more on the sales side of things, but like not viewing everything as so transactional. And just because someone says no to you now doesn't mean it won't work out later. You want to know what's actually funny is today I received an InMail. An InMail is where you send a message in InMail to someone you're not connected with. And someone responded 10 months later to my InMail today. And they wanted to set up a call. Now, I don't know if they had previously read it or it's just now they got around to it or they saved my message. I don't know. But the point is, just because you do the outreach now, the timing might not be right. And I think building relationships and building a brand is really helpful over the long run. So when the timing is right, or maybe they move jobs and they have more authority or budget, they'll think of you.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, John, this has been really informative and fun to talk about. I want to give you a chance to shamelessly plug. Maybe it's Level Up Leads, maybe it's something else. What do you want to share?
Yeah, Level Up Leads is my main focus right now. Again, we're a sales development agency, so we're helping companies book more meetings, get more leads through the funnel, and ultimately more sales qualified opportunities. So studies show this is one of the least favorite and most challenging parts of sales. So we take that off your plate and do that for you. And we have all the teams, the training, the tools, the data, everything is all included. And we go out and get to work for you. And it's in our interest that we do well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So needed. And sounds like you guys are doing it really well and growing and scaling as a result. All right, let's do some quick fire. It's going to be just a this or that, and you tell me what comes to mind. First one, board games or card games?
Ooh, I like both. Let's go card games.
Okay. Mac or PC?
Mac.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Beer or wine?
Both. No, I'd go wine.
One in each hand, right? All right. One personalized for you. Eastern Europe or Western Europe?
Western Europe.
Okay. I'm right there with you. This has been a great episode. Thank you so much, John, for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Jason. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So you've been listening to the Work Cultured podcast with John Karsant of Level Up Leads. We thank you for your time, and we will see you at the next episode. Bye-bye for now.